Hello, Rams fans, and welcome to this first installment of Great Moments in Rams History. I'm Rob Cunningham, Director of Athletic Communications at Thomas Jefferson University, and we're going to start off this series with the 1970 Men's Basketball National Championship, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. I'm joined by a head coach of that team, now entering his 54th year at the helm of the Rams, Coach Herb Magee, and the captain of that 1969-70 team, John Pierantozzi. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. First and foremost, a tough time in the country for a lot of people. John, how are you and your family doing?
We're doing just fine. Thank you.
Coach, a new academic year getting underway. How's everything going?
Well, so far so good. I think the school has reacted with their protocols and the way they're handling things quite well. We've had limited cases on campus, and I think it's going to be a successful year.
Very good. Now I'm going to take you back 50 years ago as we revisit this 1970 National Championship. And Coach, we'll start off with you as I kind of set the scene here for our viewers. You finished your prolific playing career at Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science in 1963. You came back as assistant coach under Bucky Harris for 4 seasons before taking over as the head coach for the 1967-68 campaign. Your first 2 seasons at the helm, you went a combined 41-11, but you lost your first NCAA tournament game in each of those years. So heading into that third year for you as the head coach, what were your feelings entering that season in terms of trying to make your mark? Did you feel like you had a chip on your shoulder at all going into that year?
No, I never feel that way. First of all, one of those years I was assistant coach was to Jack McKinney, who came over from St. Joe's University for 1 year. And the reason I bring that up is because Jack and I recruited the bulk of that team that won the national championship, recruiting John, Carlton Poole, and Jimmy McGilvery, who were seniors on that team. So going into that season, I thought we had a legitimate chance to advance and to continue to win games once we hit the tournament itself. Because we had tremendous experience, we were good at every position, and they were easily one of the most coachable teams I've ever had.
And John, as a senior and captain in 1969-70, you experienced those disappointing early exits in the years before. From the players' perspective, what were the expectations heading into the season?
Well, Rob, I believe that having lost in the early rounds of the NCAA tournament in my sophomore and junior year, I think we went in with the expectation that we were good enough to compete against anyone. And then it was just a matter of going out and proving it through the course of that 69-70 season.
And Coach, things didn't exactly start as planned as you actually dropped 2 of your first 3 games. Talk about those first 3 games and how the team prevented that rough start from snowballing.
Well, the first game of the year, as usual back then, we played Villanova at the Villanova Fieldhouse. And they, back then as well as now, have great basketball teams. That was a game that we actually should have won. We had the game, we were covering a pretty good lead the whole game, got down to the end. A couple things happened to us at the end of the game that we won't go into that caused us to lose that game. Then we completely destroyed Drexel the next game, and then we went down and played a very, very good Mount St. Mary's basketball team and lost in double overtime. And coming back on the bus, I remember sitting with the guys, and I can't say exactly who said it, probably was John, and they said, Coach, we're not losing anymore. And they went on to win 28 straight games, as been documented many times.
And John, as Coach mentioned, you recovered from that start. You reeled off 23 straight wins to end the regular season, 21 of them by double figures, which is just remarkable. Was there a point that you can recall where you thought, okay, our confidence is back, we're rolling now?
Well, I think the turning point in the season, Rob, came when we went up against Kentucky Wesleyan. And we were on a nice little roll going into that game, but Kentucky Wesleyan was the defending national champions, and they were rated at the time number 2 in the country. And we had, that game was played at the Palestra. And we literally took them apart. And I think we won that game by 20-some points. Even though they had a first-team All-American on that team, we just really took them apart. And I think from that point forward, I think we realized that we could compete with anybody at our level.
And John, will stay with you. Entering the tournament on that 23-game win streak, sometimes you might want a loss to come in there near the end of the regular season to humble the players, get them to be hungry again. But that didn't happen with your team. How did you and Coach Magee help keep the players from getting complacent?
Well, I think we had that. The two early season losses, I think, were still burning within our team. We were on such a roll at that point in time. We didn't want anything slowing us down. And we went into that tournament with a great deal of confidence. And the fact that it was being played in Albright, as opposed to being played in Ohio, I think certainly gave us not only a feeling of confidence, but also comfort. That season, strangely enough, we played almost as many games at Albright as we did at our home court, Aldhouse Hall. I think it was the conference tournament games, playing Albright in the regular season, and then in the conference playoffs. I think we played 5 or 6 games there that season, so we were very comfortable at that location.
And Coach, your team coasted to the regional championship. You beat Youngstown State 79-52 and Ashland in a low-scoring game, 45-28. What are your memories from those 2 games in that regional week?
We handled Youngstown. That was never a game. The other game was interesting because Ashland was ranked at that time during the year, might be number 1 in the country. Every place they traveled, they took their own bench. And they actually put it on the plane with them. And on the back of the bench, it said number 1 defensive team in the country. And what they did, they rarely shot the ball. There was no shot clock, and they had a big, strong team, but they just loved holding the basketball. The previous year, we played them on their home court, we played them out in Ohio in the NCAA regional championship, and we lose by a point. And I can remember saying to my assistant coach, Gary Rupert, I said, if we ever get a lead on that team, I'm going to hold the ball, just to show them what it feels like. At the half, I told our players, we're not shooting in the second half until they come out. And when we got them out, we back cut them, and we literally killed them. We beat them by 17 or 18 points. It wasn't a contest in the whole second half. But that was very satisfying and gratifying because they had beaten us the previous year and sent us off to Evansville on a good note.
I can only imagine watching that type of game today with little action, players not moving the ball for an entire half.
That's the truth. No, that wasn't what you would say. Well, first of all, it can't happen now because of the shot clock.
Right.
But what it did for us in that game, the players all agreed with me. It wouldn't help them if they didn't agree, but they all agreed with me. And they said, Coach, great idea, because they know what happened to us the previous year. So it was great handling the Ashland team.
John, in the quarterfinal round, you had a 101-53 blowout win against American International, then defeated UC Riverside 79-63 to get to the championship game. Of course, confidence was high heading into the tournament with your win streak, but as you started playing against some of the best teams in the nation in the tournament, was there a point where it clicked in your mind, wow, we could really win this thing?
I can't say I remember any one point where, as you said, Rob, it clicked, but I think we just had the confidence in our abilities and the way we were coached to play against any type of competition and any style of play that we should win that tournament. And I think we went in with that attitude that we were the best team. If you take a look at the stats from that season, we played against a lot of different styles, and we always seemed to be able to adapt and adjust. And as Coach just mentioned, we went against Youngstown, which played a wide open game, then beat them, turned around, played a slowdown game against Ashland, beat them at their game, and then turned around against American International, which was one of the highest scoring teams in the country, and beat them handily. So, we've just felt we could play any style of game. We had the confidence that we were one of the best defensive teams in the country. And when you get into a tournament, your offense might fail, but your defense should never fail. And that's, I think, was really the key to it all, the defense and the fact that Coach had us probably, I don't think there's any question, as the best conditioned team in the country. There was nobody that could last with us.
Coach, you have that championship game versus Tennessee State. This is 1970. There's no internet, no game tape like there is now. What did you know about their team heading into the game, and how did you prepare for them?
Well, we absolutely, they see them play for 2 straight nights because every games are being played at Evansville. And we could see that they were really good. They had a very good players in that lineup. A couple guys that ended up playing in the NBA. They had Ted McLean, who ended up being the most outstanding player in the tournament. Actually, John should have won that award, but that's for another topic for another time. But we knew that they were going to be tough, and we did it the same thing we did to Ashland, we did to them. And we hung on to the ball at the end of the game, and they refused to come get us, and we ended up going away. Won by 11, but it was a much easier game than that.
Yeah, the final score was 76-65 as the Rams won the national championship. John, take me through that game and how you got to that result.
Well, in terms of taking you through the game, Rob, I think we started out strong. Again, playing very good defense. We got some help by Ted McLean, who I think had the most outstanding player trophy in mind because he was taking just some crazy shots to start the game. And fortunately, we were then able to rebound his misses and get down the court and score. And we got off to a good start. We had a nice lead. And then we just, continued to play our brand of basketball. Tough defense, good rebounding. And as Coach mentioned, they had, some players who wound up in the NBA for quite a bit of time. And they were much bigger and stronger than we were. But again, our discipline and our conditioning and defense really sort of dominated that game.
Coach, at the buzzer sounds, what are you experiencing at that moment? Relief, joy, validation, all of the above? Take me through that moment for you.
All the above. It was a combination of all, but happy for myself, obviously, my assistant, obviously, for my family, for the school, but most of all for the players, because they sacrificed the whole year. We fortunately went through the year without injury, and mainly due to the fact that it was really a well-conditioned team. Matter of fact, one of the guys, Jim McGilvery, had added up the number of suicides that they had run that year, and he told me one day after the game, he said to me one day, Coach, we ran X number of miles, and it was, miles and miles. It might have been like 50, 60 miles worth of suicides. And he had it figured out. And I think that was the main reason for our success, because they were all on the same page. They played together. They loved each other. They're still lifelong friends. And, it was just great experience for all the guys. But as far as myself was concerned, I actually made a mistake. And I said to somebody, when they said, congratulations, Coach, it's only your 3rd year. What do you think about the future? And I said, that was pretty easy. We'll probably win that again. And that was 50-some years ago. We've come close a few times, but never that close to get to the national championship. So it's something that as you get older, and it's something that as you live back on it and think about it, it's something that'll stay with me forever. People ask me all the time, do you have a favorite team? And I don't. But if you ask me what the best team I ever had, then without question, it was 1970 national champions.
It is very tough to win a national championship, as you said, you found out.
Yeah,
John, Coach mentioned earlier, the championship game was in Evansville, Indiana, so you get to take that trophy on the way back to Philadelphia. What was that trip home like?
Well, I mean, we were just flying high. At the conclusion of the game, I think it was exhilaration, a great deal of pride in knowing that we had accomplished something that very few, college basketball players can ever accomplish. And then total exhaustion. because we had played 5 games I think it was 5 games in 8 days, including, traveling out to Indiana. So, I mean, at the end of that game, we were beat, but full of pride and just couldn't be any happier, knowing that that's a lifelong accomplishment. I mean, they can't ever take a national championship away from you.
Absolutely, well said. And Coach, when a professional team wins, you get people partying in the streets, a parade, all of that pomp and circumstance, and especially in Philadelphia, you also have to compete with the Big Five as well. How did the campus and the city receive your championship win back then?
That's a good question, and I'll tell you, John and I were talking about this the other day. We had a young fella who was the president of student body named Steve Frumpkin, who just passed away recently after he spent a number of years teaching at our school. Terrific fella, and it was his idea to change all the names of the buildings on campus and into our players' names. Actually, I have a picture in my office standing on the front out on Henry Avenue where it says Magee College of Textiles and Science in a gigantic not poster, but billboard. And I'm standing there with Steve Frumpkin and Dr. Bert Hayward, who was our president at the time. Steve also arranged for us to do a motorcade down to the mayor's office. Mayor James Tate at the time had been in contact with the school and said he'd like to have our team in his office. And we had a motorcade. And we only had a school, probably at the time, I had to guess, maybe 500 students. But I guarantee you, 80% of them were in that motorcade down to the mayor's office. And we received Liberty Bells. And it was just a tremendous, tremendous day for us. And the way it should be represented, but I was proud of my school for doing what they did.
That's a great story, and good to see that the city recognizes the championship no matter what the level. The 1969-70 Rams finished 29-2 and ended the year with 28 consecutive victories to capture the national championship. The 29 wins was a program record for 23 years and remains tied for second in school history. The 28-game win streak is tied with the 1992-93 squad for the best in program history. The 1969-70 team was inducted into the Jefferson Athletics Hall of Fame in 2007. 4, soon to be 5 members of the team are also individual Hall of Fame inductees, including both John and Coach Magee. We'll close with this. The championship is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. To this day, what is your lasting memory about that season? If somebody asks you about it, what's the first thing you tend to bring up? Coach, we'll start with you.
I would think the camaraderie of the players. One of my main things with my teams over the years has always been the number one priority is for you fellas to be a good teammate. And each guy on that team was a good teammate. They sacrificed. John was a great captain. John did a great job as basketball captain. And that team came together and stayed together the entire time. So that's the one memory that I'll have would be that. And I bring it up to all my current teams for the last 50-some years. I tell them all that if you play and you act as good teammates and you're easy to coach, you get along with the coaches, you get along with your fellow team members, you're going to have a great basketball team. That's the number one priority.
John, what's your lasting memory from that season?
Well, I think there's 2 things, Rob. One, as Coach mentioned, it was the way in which we came together as a team. I mean, we really knew intimately what we were going to be doing on that court and how we could each support each other. And then secondly, after the championship game and the fact that it was on national TV, just having so many of our alumni that I would come in contact with over the years, working in admissions and then later on in development, who said that they watched that game and it was just, a big highlight for them. The fact that it brought so much happiness and joy to our alums was also a lasting memory. And thirdly, I still have the championship watch and it still keeps good time. It runs a little slow, but then again, so do I. So, that championship watch, I see it every day.
Every time we start practice at the beginning of the year, I make sure I wear it to the first couple of practices. And I always take it off and show it to the team and say, fellas, this is what it's all about, national champions.
And that does it for this first installment of Great Moments in Rams History. John Pierantozzi and Coach Herb Magee, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you,
Rob,
Rob.
thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Well done.